and welcome to our third installment of Innovators Toolkit, featuring our third guest, Maritza Alcoreza. She is a graduate of William & Mary from 2009, if I'm correct, and she graduated with degrees in Hispanic Studies and Marketing. In 2013, she earned a Master's of Social Work with a focus in Management, Administration, and Community Organizing from the University of Maryland, Baltimore. While completing her social work degree, Maritza co-founded the Alliance for Community Teachers in Schools, a community organizing organization focused on supporting a culturally grounded, collaborative educational experience for students in urban school districts. Currently, Maritza works as the Director of Social and Emotional Wellness at the Living Classrooms Foundation. Today, she will be walking us through the skills needed to develop strong, inclusive partnerships, so important to entrepreneurship and innovation. Thank you so much for joining us, Maritza.
Thank you for that awesome bio, Sonia. I'm so happy to be here and share my experiences with this community. Well, thank you. Today's topic, I'm focusing on what has really helped me in my career, and that has been relationships. Relationships built on trust, on respect, and even taking a step further on relationships that you have with other people and other organizations. This topic, this toolkit, is also going to focus on the relationship that you have with yourself. So it might feel like a little therapy. It's definitely an opportunity for some self-reflection. And if those words are already like making you cringe a little, think of it as self-assessment, self-evaluation. This is really important. So if it's not something that you've explored yet, I invite you to step into this opportunity to do so. So the focus is on relationships. We're going to talk about relationships with yourself, and that'll also lead us into talking about self-care. So before I start, I wanted to kick this off with a loving kindness meditation. And what I'm going to do is guide a meditation for just a few minutes. And the mantras that I'm going to use are on the screen. I see you, I recognize you, I'm proud of you. And what I invite you to do is to get a comfortable seat, try to begin taking some deep breaths, and settle into this moment. So I'm giving myself, and you should give yourself, permission to be still, permission to take this time just for you. And if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can go ahead and do so. If you don't want to close your eyes, you can keep a soft gaze on the screen and see those words in front of you as a mantra that you can repeat in your head or quietly to yourself. I see you. I recognize you. I'm proud of you. The reason I wanted to start today with a loving kindness meditation is because kindness, whether you're thinking kind thoughts for yourself, to yourself, or for other people in your life and sharing those well wishes with others, it resets our nervous system. You're actually working the muscles, the neural pathways in your brain to reset and take a pause. So in this world, when we are so focused on all of our to-dos, the state of the world around us, a lot of time spent in the future, taking these kinds of opportunities to pause, connect with your breath, so inhaling through your nose, and exhaling through your mouth, you're literally telling your brain, this is the kind of state I want to operate in. And the more that you practice, the more you're able to recall this muscle, the easier you're able to pause in a stressful situation. So I'm going to invite you to breathe in through your nose, hold that breath, pause, think of this affirmation, I see you, and let it all go. We're going to breathe in through our nose again. I recognize you, and let it all out. And one more time, breathing in through the nose. I'm proud of you, and let it all out. And now I invite you to notice how you feel. Notice how you feel in this moment. Recognize the connection between your breath and your body. Notice how your mental state is, how your physical state is, and know that you can do this anytime you need to. So that's how I wanted to start today, just kind of settling ourselves, giving you a practical tool that all you need is your breath, and you're capable of doing this whenever you need. So, what I've done and what I do. Sonia mentioned I graduated William and Mary in 2009 with a focus on marketing and Hispanic studies. I did a double major. I also played soccer. So I was on the women's soccer team. Sports and physical wellness is a strong part of my identity. But now I've learned so much more about how to take care of myself. Before, I really identified with physical self-care. And now I realize how important it is to tap into our thoughts, to know how we feel, to know what our purpose is, and being able to share that with other people. That's where like the real good relationships come from. So I graduated 2009. In 2013, I got my master's in social work, and it was a focus on macro, so management, administration, community organizing. But I also have that clinical background. And so as my or as part of my degrees, I have my master's in social work, and then I'm also licensed. So I have my clinical social work license. And I co-founded a nonprofit while I was in grad school. So the way that this happened, honestly, I was doing a lot of research and interviewing experts in urban education, and specifically a model called community schools. I met a lot of people. I learned so much from them and really kept like a journal of those rich facts and almost like secrets that I felt like I was getting from other people. And I kept contact with all of the people that shared their time with me and shared their experiences and all of that content knowledge. And I followed up, and that act of following up and keeping a conversation going, even if it's just, hey, I was thinking about you, hope you're doing well. Those kinds of touches, like friendly contact, really matter. And it can be a LinkedIn message, it can be an email. If you're gonna call, I mean, I feel like that's 5 gold stars. Like nobody calls anymore. And there's so much power in a phone call. So we'll get into that too. But in my role at the Alliance for Community Teachers and Schools, my strength was that I was bold and young, and I had a lot of energy. So to start a nonprofit and to start recruiting entities, because we worked with a lot of colleges and universities and the city school public system. So reaching out to so many different players in these worlds required courage, because you're reaching out to people who have decades of experience and you're trying to get started. So putting that aside and just knowing that you connect on some level. One, you're humans, but 2, you're in the same field. So whether someone else has decades of experience or you have 10 minutes of experience, you still have a connection. You're interested in the same something, and go off of that. And we're going to talk more in this toolkit about following that dream, following that purpose, and like trying to get a clear vision of what that is. But basically, I wanted to share these things that are on the screen. Developing partnerships with colleges and universities, that was huge in my development, because you're tapping into so much like capital, human capital. You're touching into resources, professors that have all of the most up-to-date research at their fingertips. You're tapping into students who are looking for that real-world experience and need internships. Professors can help you align a course that they're teaching with an internship and give you that the free labor. Basically, you're not paying money for it, but you are providing the experience that somebody needs. And it was huge in my career, not just with Alliance for the Community Teachers in Schools, the nonprofit that I co-founded, but now too. I've always worked in nonprofits, and so like finding creative solutions to build your capacity and do more with less, that is the job. And that's the world that I live in. And colleges and universities have been huge with being able to, make your goals. The work that I specifically have done is leadership development with parents and teachers. So what that means is that I would organize leadership teams made up of parents and teachers to use each other as resources. So I would ask teachers if they had parents in mind that could lead a campaign in schools. And parents, the same thing. I would ask them if they had great relationships with teachers. Do you want to work together? And we would come up with one goal and then work on it together. So again, this is building relationships within a school and helping people see each other as resources instead of blaming each other for certain gaps in whatever. And then the rest, we'll get to that, building capacity through undergrad and graduate level internships and courses. And then what I do now specifically is health and wellness curriculum and programming, and I work with all kinds of people. So whatever your field is, think broader, because you have connections everywhere, and that's what we're going to get into. So this next slide is an introduction to you about me. These are Latinx leadership principles that I am taking from this book called The Power of Latino Leadership, Culture, Inclusion, and Contribution by Juana Bordas. And basically, these three values are how I am driven. Immediately, without reading the text, you can see that I value inclusivity, that I value diversity, that I'm using the fist for all kinds of justice, right? But you've seen it now for Black Lives Matters. You've seen it in like La Raza with Hispanic heritage. And to me, what that symbolizes is perseverance and believing in people, and that people can contribute to a greater good. And then the last one is a flower, and is faith and being bold. So for those who might be listening and not looking at the screen, I just wanted to read it. The first one is De Colores, which is inclusion and diversity. Latinos come in every color, because culture is learned. People can become Latino by corazón or affinity. And to me, that means everybody. So keep your mind open. Everybody can connect in some kind of way. So even outside of what your business driven on, you might have a personal hobby or a personal value that you connect with somebody that isn't in your business field. And these opportunities to explore and build relationships outside of a narrow focus. The next one is Si se puede, which means yes, you can. And the values that we're thinking about there are consistency, perseverance, believing in people. And the last one, fe y esperanza, gratitude and optimism. Fortune favors the bold, making unpopular decisions, practicing humility, and motivating people by being the example. So these are values that I am driven by and that you'll see popping back up in this presentation. And so earlier I mentioned that this could feel a little bit like therapy. And at this point, if you haven't yet, I invite you to get a piece of paper or even a journal to just write down these questions and think a little deeper about what your passion and purpose And the reason that I bring this up in a presentation about relationships is because if you know your why, you're going to connect with other people on a different level that will be stronger. And if you meet other people because of your why and it's their why too, that relationship and that bond that the two of you have is going to grow and continue to be strong because you're coming from a meaningful place and you're coming from a place that you know is you. So one of the things that I wanted to do with our time together is really have you think about that purpose. And if you haven't, if it doesn't come easy to you, that's 100% fine. 10 years ago, I didn't know what my purpose was either. I just knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know in what way. And what I started exploring, or what I started learning from, was how people lived. I was really interested in people's lifestyle, not necessarily a particular field, but how do you get to live that way? And most of the time, what I saw in common of the people that I wanted to be like was that they worked really hard and they played harder. So they worked really hard and they were great at their job and, made all of the to-dos, completed all of the tasks, and they took vacation and they were at their kids' soccer games and they had hobbies, and sometimes it's hard to think about, well, how are you successful in your job that you assume I have to, be working at 24/7 and have time for hobbies and have time for my family. And these things were really important to me. So I started just talking to professionals who I saw in different fields, and asking them those kinds of questions. Like, how do you have that work-life balance? What does that mean to you? And then I realized those were really important questions to bring up in interviews, because you could find out from the future place of employment whether or not they valued that. And by asking the question, you're letting them know this is one of my values. And I think that's important today, especially right now where like setting these kinds of boundaries is so difficult between work and home because so many of us are working from home. This is really important to just know, and you'll give yourself that peace of mind once you figure this out, what your why is, and you'll be more confident. So I want you to think about these questions, and we'll take some deep breaths with these too. So just inhale through your nose and connect with yourself about why. What is your why? What do you want to do and why? And when you're taking deep breaths, reflecting like this, you're not necessarily looking for the answers. You're just sitting with it. You're just giving yourself time to put these questions out there and almost let them escape your mind so it's not going through your mind so much. So you're going to breathe in again and think about your why. And you can just say, what is my why? And let it go out. And then think about, what do you want in life? Again, breathing in through your nose, connecting with your breath, thinking about what do you want in life, and noticing what comes to mind. Noticing if it's images, if it's words, just noticing without judgment. And then breathing in again through our nose, thinking about what are you grateful for, and letting it all go. So these kinds of reflection questions, self-assessment, self-evaluation, whatever you want to call it, you can do this every day. This can be a practice where you just start connecting with yourself and knowing, what is your why for today? What do you want in today? What are you grateful for today? And once you start adding these kinds of self-reflection, you become more aware of your own thoughts and of where you are. A lot of time we are in the future. We're thinking about what's going to happen. We're worrying about something in the future, and we're basically living in the future. But when you're reflecting and taking the time to pause, you're making a more intentional effort about being here right now. And so the last reflection on this slide is, would you want to partner with you? Think about yourself. Think about your strengths. Think about your way of being. Are you dependable? Are you honest? You know, the same characteristics that you look for in a partnership or a relationship. Ask those questions to yourself. And don't judge, just be honest with yourself, because that's a huge part of this practice too, is getting honest and just noticing, reflecting without judgment. So I leave that with you. And this is another exercise for visualizing. And this is something that you can read and also just take some deep breaths at a different time and think about your future self. But the way that we're thinking about that future self is through joy. So what makes your heart smile? Like, really think about that question and carry that through when you're visualizing. Carry that joy with you 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 to 20 years. How are you going to keep that joy present? You know, how are you going to maximize your efforts to make sure that that joy is front and center in the life that you're creating? And, you know, it might seem like you don't have time to focus on this right now because you're really focused on getting that internship or making the connections for the interview. But if you take the time to practice and really know where you are, the connections for the internship, the interviews, they're going to come. They're going to come because you're doing the hard work now of knowing who you are. And not many people can say that they make that effort. And I did not make that kind of effort when I was in undergrad. So I'm just sharing some of the things that have really helped me, you know, 10 years later. And it's stuff like this. So I'm going to read some of this text. Remember the times you felt joy, the times you were proud of even small things. Hold these feelings close to you, this joy and confidence. And look forward 10 years. What do you see yourself doing and being? How do you look? How do you feel? Are you carrying the joy with you? And then 20 years later, are you alive and interested in life, surrounded by friends and family who love you? What contribution are you making to life? It's your life and you have to create it. So that's a reminder to not let life happen to you. Be intentional in your life. Don't wait. Just do what you want. And if you're doing those things from a strong of purpose, you're going to be going in the right direction. All right. The next thing that I'm tapping into here is opportunity discovery. So I am all about sharing my ideas, and I'm sure people watching this, you have tons of ideas. Ideas are popping in all the time. You have conversations with people and you're, you know, inspired with another idea. But what do you do with all of these ideas? So once you have something shaped, take a look at what's the local stage, what's the national stage of the thing that you're interested in, of that thing that you're creating. For me, it was urban education. And for me, it was specifically a school design called community schools. And what I learned is that there's a national conference. And I presented at the national conference 2 years, 3 times. And what's fun about this is that you go to this place where like-minded individuals, professionals with all kinds of backgrounds, are all in one place, right? And everybody's there to learn and connect, share experiences, and absorb experiences, right? Because that's stuff like that. You're just trying to like take from everybody's experiences and, you know, learn from their mistakes so you don't make them. And that's life. That's how you keep going. So what's the national stage for what you're doing, and what's that local stage? And get involved. So look up the presenters that are going to be at these different conferences or competitions, even webinars, because I guess right now, you know, where you're probably going to find more presentations are through webinars. But there are so many resources within these places, within these events. And it's a place for networking. It's a place, and if you go with an open mind and you know your purpose, you're going to connect, and other people are going to share that drive with you. And, you know, this is more than mixers and trying to mingle and like walk away with a bunch of business cards. Whenever these kinds of opportunities presented themselves, I would get really nervous. And all I would do, honestly, is just think of one. Like, I didn't want to walk away with 15 business cards that I wasn't going to remember, you know, why I had them. But I wanted to get at least one that I knew I was really interested in and I knew I was going to follow up on. So give yourself that kind of challenge. Whether you're at a conference or even now, like while you're in school, go talk to a professor you've never talked to. Look up some research and see who's researching something that you're interested in, and go talk to them, because that's free. You're right there on the same campus, you're right there in the same community, and people are doing what you want to do. And there are people around you that could share, you know, some tips for where you're going. The next one, incubators. So I'm not sure what that looks like in Williamsburg, but in Baltimore, there are a few different places where you can go with an idea and there might be possible funding and there are resources to get you started. So this is another way to tap into resources, build some relationships, put yourself out there. Your thing, whatever it is, it does not have to be perfect. You just have to start, because you're going to spend so much time thinking and thinking and thinking. And sure, you might get it to a perfect place, but it's probably going to change again. And it's probably going to change because of somebody's input who has more experience than you, and it's going to get better. So just start that now. Don't wait. Foundations and grants. In my world, foundations and grants have been really important to keep the work going, but it's also been this opportunity for networking, collaborating. Foundations give money to organizations and individuals who you know, have a good idea, know how to do it. And if you're getting money from them, they probably know other people and organizations, other resources that are like yours or that'll help yours. Get going. And so I've made lots of contacts in this way. I've been able to share my own resources with other organizations, and I've been able to benefit from other people's resources too. And then grants. Grants could be a great way to search. Grants could also be a way to travel. Sometimes there are traveling grants to get to those national conferences and opportunities, but you don't have the money. And there are grants available that will pay you to go share your research or go share your awesome idea. So those are some of my experiences with opportunity discovery. And then taking a step back to vision, goals, and purpose, this is another opportunity for you to do some journaling and tap into these questions. I think about this kind of really look at these like once a week. Just check back in with myself on all things. What do I love? what am I naturally good at doing? What do people give me compliments about that I find easy and realize it's a skill that comes naturally to me? What kind of work do you find deeply fulfilling? And what does that mean, deeply fulfilling? How does that feel? What do I want from that? What would you do if you knew you could not fail in life? What changes do you need to make? Again, all of this is self-reflection that you can do on a monthly basis, that you can do on a quarterly basis, on a semester basis as you're getting ready for the new semester, and just check back in with yourself. This kind of self-reflection is it's a tool. It's a tool just like in the business world when we evaluate our programs and when we get evaluated as employees. You want to know that you're growing and you want to know that you're on the right path. You can also do this for yourself, and you just take that responsibility and you commit to yourself in checking in this way. And this is the kind of work that I do now as a kind of self-reflection and finding your purpose. This virtually, but before it was in person. So if this is something that interests you, my contact information is at the end, and definitely come back and connect with me. The next thing is active listening. So like if you walk away with anything from this, please let it be active listening. We might take it for granted that we're educated, right? Like, yes, we have degrees, we know things, but this is, and not everybody who has a college degree knows how to actively listen. So what does that mean? Holding space, to be fully present without trying to shift my perspective or judge my experience. So read that again and just sit with it. To be fully present without trying to shift my perspective or judge my experience or anyone else's. So when you're building relationships, try to do this. Just sit and hold the space for you and the other person that you're talking to without having a hidden agenda, without trying to get anything out of it. If you're practicing active listening, you're going to be more thoughtful in the decisions that you make. So this is something that I encourage you to try with a friend, with your parent on the phone. It's not as easy as it seems. And how to build great relationships. Trust is a big thing that I've been talking about. Never take advantage of people. Be honest, be dependable. Networking, we've talked this, different ways to network, the benefits that you can get from being bold, and just walking up to somebody. Trust yourself, remember your purpose, and in that, show an interest in people and keep up with them. It can be LinkedIn, it can be personal contact. And then with this, all of this I'm saying, like, be open, and everybody's friendly, and that's okay. That is totally fine. You're just gonna find the people that are like-minded, and that's who you're going to work with. This is kind of like a little DIY tool to building a community and building a circle of practice. And to me, this comes from my passion for learning and knowing that I always have something to learn and an area to grow in. And when you create a circle of practice, these are the things that you're hoping from the circle of practice, from the members that participate, mutual interest. So you're there, whatever that is, shared goals. You decide as a group what your goal is and how you're going to get to it. And how are you going to get to it? How often are you really would be described on paper so you can come back to it. And then you decide, you put a length of time on all of that. So it could be as easy as a book club. It could be as difficult as starting your own nonprofit. But you can apply these kinds of things to whatever and just start practicing, building a circle of practice. I have done this in a bunch of different ways in my life. And every time, even if it's just a short one of like 1 month, we meet 4 times, people want to connect and people want to share experiences. And if you're specific about how and setting some boundaries, people will show up. So I encourage you to just try, even if it's for like a study group, or maybe even learning a new hobby this semester. Just give it a try. Self-direction is absolutely one of the like entrepreneurship values that has helped me be successful. And if you're going to start your own company, or if you're going to the world of nonprofits, know that you will wear a ton of different roles. You're going to wear a ton of different hats. You can be responsible for writing grants, and you can be responsible for doing the direct programming, and you can be responsible for all of the printing and picking up paper and office supplies and all of that. So there's a lot of tasks, a lot of ability to get a company going, but you can do it, and you just have to be open to it and know that this effort is getting you to the place that you want to go. And then the other thing is creating your own role before someone else does. If you're in this ambiguous situation where you're all kind of like chipping in, all hands on deck, that's cool, and I appreciate that, but like make your own role. Just be sure and clear with everybody else that you're working with. This is what I'm doing, and these are my tasks, and this is how I'm doing it. Because if you don't, somebody else is going to say, hey, can you get X, Y, and Z done? Oh, now you're the coordinator of X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's something you want, it's not. So if you have the opportunity to create your own role and write your own job description, do it. And people don't necessarily like look at you side-eyed. They're like, oh yeah, way to take the initiative, you know? And how I have developed most of my roles. Most of my roles I created, and it was because I saw that there was a gap and I wanted to fill it. And so I wrote a description with my strengths and my skill set that allowed me to be the first person to have this role and do what I want, you know? So you can do it, just you got to know your purpose, and you have to know the why behind what you're doing, and other people are going to jump on as long as you're confident in what you're doing. Another really practical thing in getting started is diversify your funding. So, you know, just have a lot of eggs in different baskets. We had, when we started our nonprofit, we had private funding, and we had state funding, and we also had some foundational money. And that's the same kind of setting that I work in now, where I have private funding, I have donations from the nonprofit, I have foundations that donate to the work that I'm doing too. And the reason this is important is because you might have a contract with, let's say, you know, like 10 businesses, and that's giving you what you want and expect. But what if those contracts don't renew? And what if something happens to, you know, the entity that gave you those contracts and they're no longer in business? Are you still going to have that business? So if you're able to diversify, if you're able to just really plan in that kind of strategic way to get more funding in different ways, that's going to give you a more stable foundation to work off. And taking care of yourself. So we are slipping into this next part of self-care, but that is so huge in anything that you're doing, is really taking the time to take care of yourself and making that intentional to be so much more than outside of your physical exercise and nutrition, but really breaking it down into simple ways that you can do all day long. And I'm gonna get into that. But the last 6 years, doing. I operated a facilities and programming budget. As the director of a youth sports center, I created after school, and this connected me to the Latinx community around health and wellness. And now I'm really focused on social and emotional wellness for the staff at my nonprofit, for the students that we work with and their families. And today, that's what I do. I develop trauma-informed and culturally responsive professional development. I develop curriculum for youth programming, and it's really focused on identifying feelings, increasing emotional vocabulary, and having difficult conversations. And then I continue to be a community partner promoting health and wellness in Latinx communities. So this is driving us into self-care. And earlier when I was talking about how, to challenge yourself to look outside of your physical self-care, I tried to provide here some examples of the different realms. The way that I look at self-care is with a physical lens, emotional lens, a spiritual lens, and a mental lens. And the reason that I wanted to break it down this way for you is because if you look at the bullets and the examples of all of these different types of self-care, you can incorporate all four kinds in the same day. And if you're intentional about self-care throughout your day, you're going to feel better. You really are. So physical, exercising, skincare is like what we typically think of like, putting facials on, doing that bath, like rubbing yourself with some creamy lotion. And all of that's amazing, yeah, but there's so much more to you. So that's why emotional self-care, giving yourself that permission to feel, if you feel really stressed and tired and confused and your mind has racing thoughts that you can't control, don't fight it. Just take the time to sit and try not to do anything else but figure out, like, why am I feeling this way? And what changes do I need to make to feel a little more calm? And you can do it with practice, with taking these kinds of opportunities to just sit and tap into your thoughts. That takes practice. And if you do it, you can get to this point of self-awareness and being more aware of how you're feeling, of why you're having certain thoughts, of why you're reacting a certain way. And that drives me to spiritual. So spiritual, I have some bullet points there: meditation, prayer, gratitude, making a list of appreciations. These kinds of activities will help you tap into your spiritual side and just open up the realm of self-care. And these are things that you can incorporate through your day. Meditation, prayer, gratitude does not have to be, even 5 minutes. It can just be a few seconds, like right now. I am grateful for this moment. I appreciate the time to share with you all my experiences. And that's it. You just did it, So you can do this. Everything takes practice. And then the last one, mental self-care, journaling, exploring your thought patterns, affirmations. I have a slide of affirmations just to give you some examples. But take care of yourself, because we put such an emphasis on our physical self-care. And when our physical bodies don't feel well, we go to the doctor and we get better. And it's the same thing with mental health. I'm a mental health professional. And so of course I'm going to encourage you, when your mental health does not feel well, go to a doctor, go to a mental health professional. There is no shame in it, just like your physical care. And you would go to a doctor to get checked out. That's the same thing as your mental health. And especially for people who are ambitious and driven like you need to be taking care of your mental health to sustain all of this energy and all of your goals and make them come true. All right. And then calming COVID. These are just some tips of the kinds of things that I I lead workshops like this, Calming COVID. Time for you alone, some tips to find tiny joys during the day, which can be like sunshine and waking up and having fresh water. Stop multitasking. So yes, you are ambitious and you have goals and dreams, but you don't have to do everything at once. So really be intentional about what you're working on and give it its full attention. Stop chasing perfect. Be kind to yourself. If you take a second and think about the thoughts that you've had today, how many of those thoughts were intentionally kind to yourself? You know? So you do something right now. I love myself. I am kind. These are the kinds of things that you can add to your normal thought patterns and then just see what happens, how it changes. And an ultimate reflecting, feeling good about yourself. This is also another tool that you can come back to. What makes you smile? What are you good at? Who says nice things about you? When can you add more joy to your day? This is the kind of thing that you can journal and reflect about. And then some positive affirmations. You can visualize your happy place and take any of these things, all of these things, and just think about them. You can breathe in through your nose, connecting with your breath, and out through your mouth, and just look at any of them. I have no limitations. I have all the time in the world. And connect with yourself. And thank you. This is my contact information. Take care of yourself. I would love to connect with you. So please connect with me if you feel it. And back to you, Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, here, let's go back to, as much as I love the presentation, just the two of us so we can chat a little bit, if that's cool with you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have thinking about like, what are the specific business tools that I want to share here? And I was going to do a little more of that, but then I really reflected on, well, 11 years ago when I was a student, what did I want to see and what did I want to hear? And it was really stuff like this about like, how do you figure out what you want to do? And how do you figure out how to take care of yourself while doing all of these hard things? Because, the truth is most of us who are graduating from William and Mary are high achieving, ambitious people, and we need to take care of ourselves. So I'm really happy to be here. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. So before I ask you a few follow-up questions, you are a little choppy. And I remember you saying you could switch to another device.
Yeah. I'll switch over to my phone.
Well, again, thank you so much. That is definitely what I needed to hear. And I feel like as soon as it disseminates to everybody, all you watching will also feel that way. I was really struck by what you said about, just holding that space for yourself without judgment. Because I think a lot of people, will meditate even and get to that place where they're like, okay, I know what I need to do, to take time for myself or to make that space, but it's still with a tinge of, am I doing this right? Like, like what's going on? I mean, I felt that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a tendency of William and Mary students as well, who are used to, doing things right, and being rewarded for that right way of doing things. So how do you combat the kind of perfectionism that judgment can lead to? Not only in these sort of self-care spaces, but also, at a networking event, and maybe you didn't get to talk to that one person you really came to see. And how do you take a moment and hold space for yourself without judgment?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that will take years of reflecting to figure out like what the right thing is for you. But in my experience, I have to remind myself that nobody has my experience, that I have my own unique set of strengths, but I really focus on my personal experiences. So like my background of being Latina and how that drives me, what pieces of my culture are a part of me and are the reason, behind my decision-making process. but it's really important in those times of doubt and when you notice that you're judging yourself to remember that nobody has your experience. Like, there is nobody else like you. And a lot of times that makes us feel like even more isolated or alone or lost because I don't see anybody in front of me doing the thing that I want to do. And I share that. I relate to that because that's always been, even now, where I want to connect with other people of color, especially Latinos, that are doing what I'm doing, but aren't. Like, there aren't people that are doing what I'm doing. And you just have to be confident in that, and that you are doing what you are supposed to be doing, and your path is going to look different from someone else's because that's their path. And your path could look like someone else's, but it's not your path. You know, like, yours is going to be so unique to you. And that's why I was really trying to emphasize that self-reflection and knowing your purpose, because that is going to help you have more confidence in all of these decisions you're about to make.
Brilliant. Yeah, and that's something that I think about a lot of times as well. And a theme that I found in your presentation of, you said when you were young, like, you were super bold, and that's kind of what has gotten you to the place you are now, creating this position for yourself, and creating that space. And at the same time, in your presentation, I felt the theme of, like, let's connect with other people, and like, kind of create this communal sort of environment where we can all our strengths can all be uplifted. And so how do you balance, remembering that you are a unique individual with a certain path and a certain set of experiences, but also, blending those experiences with other people and allowing them to shape you as well?
That's also a great question.
It's a
That's
great presentation.
for synthesizing all of that, because that was well done. So going to, okay, I'm going to bring this back to the self-reflection that you're doing with yourself and taking that time and investing in yourself. When you do that more, you become more aware of other people who value this in themselves. And what I mean is, you become you become to notice how other people also take care of themselves, and how other people are so clear in their vision, or clear on what their purpose is or the goals. And because of that, in my experience, I have had stronger relationships, that I know I can trust people, depend on them, and that we are going to be successful collaborating, because I recognize that in others. But still, right? Like, how do you balance it all? I would say the biggest thing is communication and being open. Honestly, like, communication in that people know where you're coming from and what you stand for. And then just being open that you know where you're coming from and you know what you stand for, and anyone else can influence that in a
Yeah.
positive way. So keeping that open mind. I think that's my answer for that one.
Oh, that's so fabulous. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love this conversation. Also, I was really curious about, how can you say, like, can you tell us a little bit more about, sort of working within the mental health realm, specifically with the Latinx population, and what that means to you, and how you may approach it similarly or differently, than other sort of just general therapeutic, techniques and things like that?
Yeah. One of the most, one of the things that I do every year and have been doing since my role here, I collaborate with all kinds of partners in this specific area in Baltimore. And that's something that I forgot to tap into, just the multidisciplinary approach to building relationships. Get outside of just your field, because if you are able to connect with other people who aren't necessarily, in that narrow path that you're taking, your path is going to broaden up. You're going to have way more roads to tap into. And man, I lost my train of thought.
You're good. You're good. It happens. It happens. Yeah, I guess just, are there specific, like, when you've actually been working with parents and teachers, and how do you also combine your own identity as Latina into your work, if that would give you a new avenue?
And I was just thinking of the multidisciplinary approach, working with nonprofits and city agencies and the colleges and universities. Like, all of these places, entities are just so broad that you can find whatever it is you're looking for within them. And the reason I brought that up in thinking about the Latinx communities is because around here, we have Hopkins as one of our big resources, and they have a specific community organization out of Hopkins that connects Hopkins to community residents, as well as community organizations and partners like me. And we work together. So 2 weeks ago, or it might have been, actually, it was just last week. So crazy now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Week-long event, and it was all promoting movement. And every year we do this on a Saturday in September during Hispanic Heritage Month, and we promote movement through free Zumba in a park, a free 5K. It's a collaboration with a bunch of community organizations and family organizations, and we all get together to basically move and promote health and wellness in the community. Flu shots are free, and that's been a way to connect and build relationships. And I think this was our 6th or 7th year of doing this event, and it's great. Like, it's a really fun local event, but people look forward to it, and it grows year after year, and you're doing something purposeful because at least we are driven by health and wellness and promoting that in our communities' lives. Yeah. And with me specifically, I'm Puerto Rican and Bolivian, and the communities out here are mostly Central American and Mexican, and I had cultural challenges connecting with the community. I think, my organization, and me included, assumed Latina, you can connect with the Latino community. And it was hard. In the beginning, it was hard. Like, the language is different. Cultural practices are different. Now, 6 years later, I'm definitely connected, and I know how to work with this community. But at the beginning, it was a challenge. There were lots of different cultural values that I had to learn myself.
Would you say that your own reflective work of knowing yourself helped you see the nuance in those people that you were working with more, because you were seeing it more in yourself and things like that? Was that inner work translated into your work in the community?
Not yet, but I think I'm going in that direction. At the beginning of my work here, no, I don't think I was like that self-aware yet. Yeah. To kind of impact like we were having on each other. And now I know how to be a little more intentional about what I share and how to do it and how to connect, for sure.
That's so cool. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Maritza. Thank you, everybody who's listening. If you want to give feedback and get some points for checking in and listening to this conversation, please check out the link in the show notes. And thanks everybody so much.